Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. The title of our presentation is Studying the Place of Transcendental Ideals and Human Instincts in Modern Psychology, an insight into the alternative discourse of Mohammad Rafi-ud-Din. Since all of you know we are two presenters, so I'll talk about the theoretical foundations of refutation of modern theoretical foundations of Mohammad Rafi, and my colleague Dr. Mohammad Shuakat will discuss the intellectual discourse of Dr. Rafi comprehensively. This research is centered on discussing the discourse of Mohammad Rafi-ud-Din. Here, an important question arises: why Rafi-ud-Din? Unfortunately, he is less discussed and less explored as compared to his contemporaries. His importance primarily lies in his deconstruction and refutation of all those reductionist theories which played a key role in formulating the concept of man in modernity. While realizing the trivial nature and profound impact of these ideological grounds at the outset of modern man, he presented his unwavered discourse embedded in Quran, Sunnah, and the pillars of Islamic teachings. He promoted Islamic values in a changing world and emphasized relevance of the Quran and Sunnah to the contemporary challenges. Here, the main aim is not to discuss the details of Dr. Rafi's life, instead his impressive and intellectual contribution in his commitment to formulate an alternative discourse in the face of these modernist theories. Before venturing into the discourse of Dr. Rafi, it is very important to know how modernity brought a turmoil in the classical and traditional notions of man. Traditionally, before the advent of modernity, a shared belief among all ancient civilizations was transcendence of man, an assertion on the fact that dignity of man is due to his spiritual and a moral being. Also, living a virtuous life, an ethical life for personal fulfillment and societal harmony is quite important. Hence, man was the center of all the creations. However, theories emerging in the modernity disrupted this traditional understanding of man, such as the economic determinism of Karl Marx, assertion on the sexual instinct by Sigmund Freud, and Alfred Adler's and William McDougall's theories. So I'll talk about each theory briefly and the refutation by Dr. Rafi-ud-Din, and then my colleague will present his discourse. Karl Marx's economic determinism, where he emphasized on economic and social forces in shaping entire human nature, linking ideals to economic conditions, was refuted by Dr. Rafi, and he raised few queries about it. For example, number one, the reasons of the motivation behind individuals sacrificing their needs for a higher cause, the persistence of melancholy even when economic needs are met, and the continuous evolution of human desires. These concerns question the sole reliance on economic needs as the source of human ideals. Dr. Rafi's refutation underscores the need to reevaluate the prevailing concept of humanity and recognition of the limitations of materialistic approaches that disregard spiritual and emotional aspects of human existence. Similarly, Dr. Rafi-ud-Din, in his appraisal of Freud's ideas, acknowledged Freud's contribution in classifying the mind in id, ego, and superego, and for emphasizing the importance of unconscious as dynamic power of human action, which opened new horizons in the knowledge of human nature. But he also contended that the Freud's overemphasis on sex instinct and the source and nature of unconscious urge being sexual is where the theory falls short, and indeed is a faulty representation of human nature. Sexuality in humans is intertwined with the pursuit of beauty and ideals, making it a complex and multifaceted aspect of human nature. In his refutation of Alfred Adler's theory, Rafi-ud-Din acknowledged the presence of the urge for self-assertion, but disagreed with its characterization as the defining attribute of human personality. He argued that this urge should be viewed as a means to satisfy the needs for ideals and beauty. Rafi-ud-Din's perspective emphasized that the pursuit of power is ultimately driven by a love of the ideal, challenging Adler's view and offering a more profound understanding of human motivation. In his refutation of William McDougall, Rafi-ud-Din agreed with him in his recognition of instincts but disagreed with the notion that they constitute the entirety of human nature. He highlighted critical differences between humans and animals, such as self-awareness, self-control, and a pursuit of ideals. Rafi-ud-Din's critique urged a deeper examination of human consciousness, desires, and the role of love for ideals in motivating human behavior, challenging reductionist perspectives. I'll end my presentation here, and now my colleague, Dr. Mohammad Shuakat, will discuss how Dr. Rafi built his discourse without being impressed by the prevalent discourses. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My colleague has presented half of the topic and the rest would be presented by me. What is the true nature of man had been one of the most important questions before the intelligentsia of 20th century. Certain facts about human nature, like his love for some ideal, his sacrificing capabilities, and his endurance of sufferings, have not yet been explained by the thinkers of modernity and postmodernism. A meta-narrative which could explain all the facts about human nature and which could interconnect his transcendence and his animalistic instincts is still to be formed. To replace the Western view, a true and comprehensive explanation of human nature is still required, which should not only in accordance with the traditional concept of morality and dignity of man, but also it should correlate all the facts of existence, and it should derive support from the latest discoveries in the spheres of physics, biology, and psychology. If such a theory or explanation can be formed, it can become the foundation of the formation of a new worldview. Then it would be possible to reconstruct the philosophies of politics, ethics, economics, history, law, education, art, and individual and social psychologies on a single basis, and therefore would take the shape of a single science of man, what man really is. Dr. Rafi-ud-Din in his works have tried to provide a connected explanation to all these issues. He believes that a critical examination of the theories about human nature in the light of all the facts of human nature reveals that none of them is correct representation of the human nature. How profound and comprehensive the man is. According to him, no theory explicitly explains what really man is. He argues that the urge for ideals is neither derived from nor subserves any of those human impulses known as instincts, the object of which is the maintenance of life only. On the other hand, it is man's natural and independent urge for beauty and perfection which rules and controls all such impulses. He elaborated his concept of man in his works and starts from the process of creation. It is very obvious that if someone has to generate an alternative narrative about the specialness of man, he first have to prove that the creation of universe is not by the result of an accident, and it was a purposeful creation. So Dr. Rafi-ud-Din describes that the universe with all its manifestation and vastness is very symmetrical and is running in coherence and balance with each other. If this cosmic balance is disturbed, whole universe will collapse. It is not comprehensible that this so profound and so comprehensive universe is created as the result of an accident. Dr. Rafi-ud-Din proves that it is very strong evidence to the fact that the universe is created after a conscious process and a single mind was present behind it. Further, he adds other theorists like Lord Kelvin, the Alan Whittle of Bergson, scientists like James Jeans, and especially after the discovery of quantum physics, etc., all he give the undenying evidence that the universe is coherent, internally complete, sustainable, and also that the theories of science are always prone to change. Evolution theory of Darwin is actually the biological aspect of the fragmented scientific explanation of the universe. According to Rafi-ud-Din, this theory is the logical conclusion of the materialism of 19th century and has immense influence over most of the later intellectual movements. Many of the sciences that created afterwards, consider man as Homo sapiens, an evolved being from not like a super creator who is Khalifa of Allah. So, according to Dr. Rafi-ud-Din, this theory has two postulates. First one is about the reality of the evolution. It means that the evolution did happen and life is constantly evolving from the low stages to the higher stages of higher levels of existence. The second is about the cause behind that evolution. Darwinian thought describes this cause to be the urge to exist, the process of natural selection, and subsequently the survival of the fittest. Rafi-ud-Din seems to have no problem in adopting the first part of that theory and doesn't find anything contradictory in it with beliefs of Islam. However, in the second part, that is regarding to the cause of this process, he declared it as in total contradiction with reality. Then regarding the purpose of instincts in man, Rafi-ud-Din affirmed that they are to subserve biological needs of growth and continuity, so should be given due importance, but strongly disagrees the concept of explaining whole human personality around these instincts. He declares that these instincts right from the beginning are present in man and in animals to perform biological functions of growth and reproduction. At a time of extreme arousal, some instincts may become very powerful for a person, but these instincts don't possess permanent control over man. Rather, it is some higher desires which are the ruling power and the basic motivation behind human activity. And when a man is striving to achieve that higher ideal, he can ignore some or at time all those instincts. He even sacrifices his life in his effort to achieve his goal. When a soldier is fighting in a battlefield, he ignores all his personal needs and desires to achieve a higher goal. During the month of Ramadan, millions of Muslims perform the act of fasting, and this is possible only when they ignore their hunger needs. Moreover, the feeling and urge of love is by all standards the sweetest and the most powerful urge of man. Dr. Rafi-ud-Din considers this urge as the sole dynamic urge of man. He considers this as the most important attribute of human personality around which all of his traits and tendencies can be described. He writes that attraction, love, or the search of beauty is the principal urge of consciousness, and this urge has been manifesting itself at every stage of evolution in a manner suitable to and consistent with that stage. He further states that on the psychological level, man's love for an ideal dominates all his desires. Ideal is the only motivation that urges man to keep on moving. Without an ideal, man cannot get internal satisfaction. At every step in the development of his self-consciousness, the individual has an ideal which at the same time the idea of the highest beauty known to him. But no ideal is able to meet the full requirements of the urge of self. Every ideal therefore yields place to another one after some time. As soon as one ideal loses its charm, the individual chooses another ideal more beautiful than the previous one, in the hope that it will satisfy his desire completely. In this way, his ideal rises in the scale of beauty step by step, till he reaches the right ideal, which is the real desire of his self. The ideal, according to Rafi-ud-Din, should possess the following qualities. Number one, he must be free from every drawback or defect that one can possibly think of. And number two, it must possess all the qualities and attributes that we can by our nature look upon as lovable, admirable, and beautiful. According to him, man has a strong desire to the idea of an all-powerful, beautiful, and omnipotent self, which cannot be none other than God, the creator of the universe, who have all the traits of beauty and perfection. Rafi-ud-Din declares this view as the sole dynamic source to explain human personality, as what man is. And he derived its sources from Holy Quran, which is described in Holy Quran as Alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala. So we have experienced, our souls have experienced the presence of Allah, so it has become our nature in this world that we are in search of a very high and very perfect ideal. Dr. Rafi-ud-Din in his explanation of human nature have tried to his best to reassign the transcendence and dignity to man that he enjoyed for centuries and which was lost in the past few centuries after the intellectual dominance of the modern Western thoughts. The unique aspect of his explanation is that the writer has tried his best to maintain the intellectual standards of his theory according to the academic standards of modern age. Thank you very much.